Let's get straight to our podcast segment for this weekend. So as the political landscape of South Africa shifts and changes each and every political cycle, it sees the coming of age of a new cohort of politically active youth, of those who are disillusioned with the status quo. Zukhanye Kame is a political commentator who examines the unpredictable landscape of the South African and international politics landscape, and in streamlined format as well as vocabulary that caters to Gen Zs, young adults and young millennials. She joins us in studio this evening. I see you laughing already and chuckling there when I do that intro, particularly when we look at the audience that you touch base with. And I know that podcasts at this stage are often hailed for being sort of an alternative medium that gives people, you know, more nuanced conversations where they are able to talk and debate robustly so in a longer format. Do you think that it has allowed for the political discourse to be more robust, or do you feel that it's just a platform that, you know, sort of like polarizes views against one another? What's your sense on that?
I think that question is a loaded question, right? So there's multiple ways where you can look at it in terms of whether it's polarizing or not. But in terms of podcasting, when it comes to the political landscape, it has really encouraged us to have more conversation with regards to politics. It's almost in a way where politics is now on your screen rather than it being on the TV in the traditional sense, right? Yeah. So now it's like, it feels more at home. It feels more in contact with you, right? But then also with regards to social media in and of itself, social media is polarizing, right? Depending on your algorithm and what you see. There was even a documentary called The Social Dilemma that came out in 2020 that spoke about like how we see what we want to see and why we see what we want to see on our screens. Therefore, if you are a leftist, your media on your phone will be leftist. If you are a rightist, the media on your screen will be rightist, right? So I think in and of itself, podcasting is not polarizing in and of itself, but I think that the way that social media is set up and the algorithm, yes, in that sense it can be. But in and of itself, I don't think so, because it allows for there to be different opinions to be placed on the platforms instead of there just being only one form of opinion on traditional media, which is what has been peddled to us in terms of traditional media.
Yeah, and I want to know the responsibility that comes with it, because we always have this conversation when it comes to podcasting, that with some of the rights also comes certain responsibilities, 100%. Right? And at a time where you have young people that are now consuming political content through podcasts mostly, as opposed to maybe just reading a newspaper or so, just what responsibilities now lie squarely with some of the content as well as podcast producers to ensure that they guard against mis and disinformation, particularly at this critical time of electioneering? I
think they hold a huge responsibility, right? Because with regards to traditional media, SABC, you guys are governed by things like the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa, right? Where if you guys mislead people or you guys misinform the public, you guys have a body that you guys account to, you know? Whereas with podcasts and social media, there isn't really that platform that you really account to except for your YouTube, right? With YouTube, it has its own guidelines, it has its own rules, and also on Instagram and things like that. So those are the guidelines that you are led by. But in terms of your actual content, I think the responsibility is much larger because one, it reaches a larger group of people, and then two, it's also much more difficult to fact check than it is on traditional media. So sometimes just because I'm on a mic and I have a camera and I'm able to say whatever, sometimes people will take that as the truth or will take it as Bible, right? But I could be misleading people, right? So that's where it kind of has its detriments in terms of the social media or the podcasting area that we're in.
Yeah, and there are indeed a few less editorial constraints in the podcasting space. I want to know what you read of that. Do you get a sense that it perhaps also just allows people to be able to be as robust as they can be, or it also just, you know, sort of blurs the lines between what you can say, or you can just be disrespectful and get away with it on that platform?
Listen, I'm not a person that believes in the absolutes, right? I believe that two things can be true at once, right? So in terms of that, true. in both senses. Yes, it does allow for there to be robust conversations and robust dialogues when it comes to particular issues. But also it does lend itself to allowing people to be disrespectful, right, online. So I think that when it comes to social media, it's easy for you to say whatever you want to say because no one's really going to hold you accountable when you have your phone in front of you. You can say whatever you want to say, and it is that. And if you have followers who are loyal to you, they'll take your word for it and run with it, you know? So two things can be true at once. So both of them are factors that can be taken into account, and both of them can be true.
I'm going to put you on the spot. I want you to talk to me about some of the podcasts that you think in the country are doing justice to the political landscape and are shifting their various spaces. And I also want you to call out those you think are not doing a good job.
Alrighty, so in terms of that, so I think with regards to political podcasts, right, we cannot have this conversation without talking about the pinnacle or talking about the benchmark for political podcasts, SMWX. I think with regards to him and also as an aspiring political podcaster, that is the benchmark. He's always bringing in facts. He's always thorough. You know, you have your Mighty Jamies, your Dan Corders, and also you even have a friend of mine, Palatable Politics, TJ Masilele as well.
Dan Corder's great. We've had him on the show as well as part of the segment.
He's bringing politics, making it more palatable, whereas for me, it's a thing of trying to bring politics to Gen Z, you know? So it's just all of these podcasts that are doing justice to the political system or the political sphere, right? Then you have your other podcasts.
Let's talk about those other podcasts, and I want you to call them out.
Right, so I am not a huge fan of her. I don't know, citizen concerned. I think...
What is it about that podcast that gets you riled up?
Not really necessarily riled up, but I think when it comes to podcasting, right, the whole thing of everyone has the right to speak their mind, right? So in terms of her, I think that she rage baits a lot when it comes to race. I think she's one of those, for lack of a better word, bitter blacks when it comes to podcasting. So she's very much a leftist, she's very much conservative, pardon me, in terms of her views. So that's one of those. And then there's also, I forget his name, but he was in Parliament with the DA as well. I forget his name, but he is Ronaldo Horst, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's his name. But I know that he was a parliamentarian for the DA and was recently then fired because of his racial slurs that he said previously. So you have those, and then you also have other international ones as well that are just, you know, a bit on the other side. But obviously, in terms of this, people have the right to their opinions. It is what it is at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, and actually I was deliberate when I asked you that question because part of us having this conversation is that we're able to see where the podcast landscape is and where it's potentially going, but also in having these uncomfortable conversations, we are able to also just find a way in which we should be navigating some of these spaces because these are uncharted waters and everybody's getting into podcasting now. And I'm going to keep going back to this point that it's a very important year. It's a critical year. It's an election year. Let's talk about some of those responsibilities at this critical time that lie with the podcasters. And what would you say to podcasters right now, particularly when we look at fact-checking, when we look at what goes out, what they put out, when we look at the era now of what you called rage baiting, what would you say?
I think, in all honesty, just make sure that you're authentic. Just make sure that whatever you're putting out there, that you know it's true, right? And whatever your agenda is, just make sure that you understand the harm or the implications that it may have on others. You know, it's not just about your channel. It's not just about pushing numbers. There are real people that are watching what you're saying and that believe what you're saying and they take it to heart. So bear that in mind and just remember that we are in trying political times. It is an election year and we would like for people to have the correct information. So that is the responsibility that we have as podcasters. essentially what
So
I'd
what
say.
should we be looking forward to insofar as you are concerned? I know you're doing great things. Yeah? Talk to us about those great things
So
quickly.
for me right now, I'm just more so focused on building my platform, making sure that politics is taught by Z grows, and making sure that politics is taught by Z is also part of the discourse when it comes to podcasts, you know? So that is what I would love to do in the near future.
Zukhanye Kame, a political commentator. Thank you so much for your time and insights. It's certainly great chatting to you on the program today. I hope that we're going to be touching base again some other time soon. That's of course our guest there, Zukhanye Kame, was a political commentator joining us there on the program. Do take note that the views expressed in this segment are those of our guests and in no way reflect those of the SABC.